The Marines have a famous saying, "No man left behind." We need that same mindset in our families. Join us for this important conversation today on Family Vision. Well, we just got back from an amazing conference down in Orlando, Florida, the D6 conference. This is the premier family ministry gathering, church leaders from all over the world coming together to talk about how the church and home can partner together. What was one of your highlights of D6 this year?
You know, probably one of my biggest highlights was Elisa Childers. People had told me to pay attention to her before I went down. I honestly had not heard her before, read any of her books. And apparently she's coming to speak in the Wheaton area next fall. So I was very interested. She's coming to, I think, Wheaton Academy, Wheaton College. And I thought she was amazing because she really tackled progressive Christianity in probably one of the most distinct ways I've ever heard. And I found out, this was so exciting, we had already seen the movie Jesus Revolution twice. And she's the daughter of her dad was in the group Love Song that's represented in that movie. She was part of the Christian group Zoe Girl. I kind of remember Zoe Girl, too, as a Christian group I used to listen to. So that was probably my biggest highlight as far as speakers on the main stage.
And it was also great to be there with our kids, Ray and Rush and Millie and Millie's friend Phoebe. They did a great job at the resource table representing VFM very well, and we had some wonderful family memories together.
And Phoebe and Millie made a great connection with, her name was Angela. I don't know her last name, but you know who speaks on tech and family. So that was also a highlight for me to see how connected they got to.
Well, they went to one of the workshops on tech and teens, and so the speaker was so thrilled, Angela was so thrilled to have actual teenagers there, specimens there that were interacting with her, and
it was fun.
That was great. Well, honey, you shared a workshop at the D6 conference this year called No Man Left Behind, How to Help Families with a Kid in Crisis, with Children in Crisis. It was incredibly well attended. The feedback and responses were great. And literally, as we were walking out of the workshop, I said to you, I think we were 10 feet out into the hall. I said, as soon as we get back, we are doing 3 podcast episodes on this because we want the Family Vision community to hear what you shared. I thought it was incredibly needed and powerful. So I'm going to kind of set you up and give you some softballs to hit to share what you shared at D6. But
I appreciate that.
But I want to start by turning back the clock, because in our early years of ministry together, we didn't understand or really have a biblical theology of family, and that affected how we did ministry in some of those early years. So you want to share that example, like even with how we did our mission trips.
I was trying to bring up in the workshop that even back when we met and started dating, we might not have had a biblical vision of family, but we certainly were passionate about families.
Right.
Rob had done a degree in psychology. I can't remember all your degrees. It's like psychology, biblical studies, ancient languages. He got a master's in theology, a master's in divinity, and then his doctorate in leadership and Christian ministry. And I had my master's or was getting my master's in marriage family therapy when we met. So really, when we started dating, we were passionate about families. And we even made some changes in youth ministry. Rob was a youth pastor at a Wheaton church. And just to put it in perspective how things different were back then, we did have a passion for families. So we made some changes. And one of the changes we made was there was like a missions trip that was done every year. And because there were so many kids, there were multiple sites. And one of the rules of the youth group back then, that if you had a sibling, you were not allowed to be on the same site. Or if your parent was coming to help, you were not allowed to be on the same site. And how interesting that, we even back then thought, that's really strange. Wouldn't we want the family members to
serve together?
To serve together or use this time to become more connected. But again, the mindset in the church back then, it was that it was almost better to get people away from their families. Mm-hmm. So we made some of these changes. We also offered parenting workshops, and I think this is hysterical because we were only 25 years old. We had no children, and yet these workshops were very well attended. And I'm just being honest with you. At this point in my life, if I have a problem with my kids or my teenagers, I am not going to go listen to 25-year-olds without children. That's just not where I'm going to go. But I think the fact that we were doing these workshops that was so well attended, even back then, this was in the 90s, showed a hunger that people had for answers for family issues. And that's why people came. And I think we were helpful. I don't think we did harm. I don't think we did harm, but I still look back on that and think it's kind of funny to me. But so we made those changes, but it was understanding that there was this whole theology, a biblical vision of family that we really hadn't been exposed to, even with all those degrees I mentioned from Christian institutions. That was really shocking to us, and it changed the way we did ministry and really the way we did counseling too, how we counseled families.
Right. So we're going to do 3 shows on this and talk about how do we help kids that are in serious crisis. And we say serious crisis, we mean significant depression, anxiety, self-harm, addiction, eating disorders. In our 30 years now of ministering together, we feel so convicted that there are some essential principles that parents need to understand and put into practice when they're facing these critical crisis moments with their kids. And hopefully this goes without saying, 3 15-minute conversations about helping kids who are dealing with serious depression, anxiety, addiction. We're just scratching the surface, but we want to give you some anchor points that can really, really help you. So today I want to start off and have you talk about this no man left behind mindset.
So the first one, when we meet with a family in crisis, is we will talk about this Marine principle that there is no man left behind. And what that means basically is that, in the Marines, that, if someone's injured or someone's hurt, or even in the Marines, if someone has died, they don't leave them behind. Like that's part of their core philosophy. Like they're not going to forsake you at that time. I also like this. A similar principle is in the movie Lilo and Stitch. And I like that movie because they have this Hawaiian phrase which says ohana means family, and family means no one is left behind or forgotten. So basically when a child is in crisis, one of the best things that we find meeting with the parents is just to tell them, when you as a family kind of communicate to the child in crisis and have a different mindset that we're being hurt as a team right now. We're being hurt as a unit, and we're not moving forward until you're coming with us. It really helps to take some of the pressure off of that child who is feeling already stigmatized, that they're the ones causing all the problems. But when the family develops this mindset that we're not going forward without you, that relieves some of the stress on the child and kind of makes it not just the child's problem, but the family's problem. Mm-hmm. We're all in this together, and our life is going to have to change as we all face into this problem together.
I think that's so good, because we see so many families that when a kid is in crisis, their mindset is, I have to fix the kid. Now, they might not say it that harshly, but this is obviously a problem with my child. I need to fix them, as opposed to thinking of this as a family problem, a family crisis. And then the solution is not a fix the kid solution. It's health and healing for the whole family.
For the whole family.
And now I want you to talk about what actually happens to a lot of kids, and we've seen this and worked with families who have had this happen. When they have the fix the kid mindset, the child actually can begin to develop an identity that they are the problem in the family. Can you expand on that?
Well, and first of all, just with a lot of grace, that's what culture is communicating. And culture communicates that at a very, very young age. I can go back, and this is something I learned, again, probably in the early 2000s, but I had a friend whose child was having a lot of problems, and she took this child to a psychologist, and the psychologist made this statement, and it's always stuck with me, that our culture has more grace for adults than they do for children. And now let me unpack that a little bit.
Yeah, give some examples.
Yeah, because when we have an adult that has a serious problem, our society will make excuses for them. Our society will say, well, they have this problem because of, these cultural issues that created this problem. And the adult gets, in many ways, a lot of grace, even if they've done something very destructive.
We just saw it this weekend in Chicago. There was a mob of 100 teenagers and young adults destroying cars, ransacking businesses, attacking people. And our mayor came out and said, well, we have to understand, right, the background and situation that these adults really have come from.
That is a perfect example. Now take that in contrast to the 3-year-old who cannot sit quietly during circle time. That 3-year-old has a problem. We have to fix the 3-year-old. And this is what our culture has done to children. And one point I made that is really important to understand is that, see, the system wants the child to fit into the system. But the system doesn't love the child. The system loves the system. So it's like everything. It's like all the wheels are in motion in order to have the system work. And if your child's not fitting into it at a very young age, then they can be identified as having the problem. And it is no wonder that we're raising children who literally their problems have become their identities. And we, in many ways, as a culture, have created this. I used to work at my first job was at a school for behavior disordered, well, not just behavior disordered, autism, PDD, we call it, all range of spectrum of different types of disorder. And I was a family therapist. And I know what it's like to sit around a table where you're talking about an IEP and you have the teacher and
What's an IEP?
Okay, an IEP. That was what we called the Individualized Education Plan.
Thank you.
And so you'd have a staffing, and in this staffing, you'd have your occupational therapist, your speech therapist, your individual therapist, your family therapist, the teacher, probably the psychiatrist sometimes if they were there, the supervisor, I think about that, and then the parent. And of course, it's the parent that is viewed as the least expert on what's going on with the child's problem. And so my point is, it's really understandable that parents have this idea that they have to fix their child and that's the driving factor, because that is what the message they're getting everywhere, really.
And you know what we hear a lot of times with kids that are doing self-harm or having suicidal ideation? One of the things you hear a lot is people would be happier if I wasn't here.
Oh, my goodness, yes.
Right? And they have that spirit in them that they really are the problem in this system. The system is broken because of me. The family is broken because of me. You know, it reminds me of a scripture that we've talked about a number of times on Family Vision. It's Colossians 3:21. Speaking to fathers, it says, "Fathers, do not provoke your children, lest they become discouraged." The warning in that verse, or the thing that God says, the thing you absolutely don't want to happen is for your child to become discouraged and for your child to lose heart. And that's exactly what we see when we have a child in crisis. If the family does not adopt this no man left behind mindset, the family needs to think about this as a family challenge, an urgent situation that requires family healing, not just healing for the child.
And the basic mind shift of saying this is our problem versus this is your problem.
That's so good.
Is a huge mind shift that makes just getting a family to do that will have a huge impact on the recovery process. And it is no wonder that we're living in this world where children have now found their identity in their problems. And that's also no wonder why we see such skyrocketing rates of depression and early suicide attempts in younger and younger ages. So we hope that this is kind of raising the flag that families need to change the way they view the problem from the beginning.
Well, we're going to pick up this conversation next week. But I want to let you know about a fun new book that's coming your way very soon. I'm almost done with it. It'll be out in just a couple weeks. It's called Let There Be Fish. It's a new project, something a little bit out of the ordinary for me, but it's a devotional for fishermen. Goes through the whole Bible, talking about all these scriptures where God talks about fish, fishing, fishermen, Jesus multiplying the fish, fishermen that are changing the world. So if you have a fisherman or fisherwoman in your life, it will be coming out very, very soon. It's going to be perfect for Father's Day, perfect for Mother's Day. So
perfect
check our,
there are
fisherman,
mothers,
fisherwoman.
Yes, right, you're right.
There is a picture in the book of my sweet wife fishing and actually having caught a fish. It's one of the best. It's a high, the high point.
Again, you caught the fish and handed it to me, but it was it was close to that.
The point is you're going to love it. It's almost done. I'll keep you posted. If you don't follow us on social media, make sure you do that. Type Visionary Family Ministries into any social media platform, and you will find us, and we'll keep you posted on Let There Be Fish. You can also stay in touch with us personally by emailing us at podcast@visionaryfam.com. Maybe you have feedback from the show, something that Family Vision, something that you've heard on Family Vision that has made a difference in your life, or maybe you have a prayer request for your family. Email us at podcast@visionaryfam.com, and we look forward to our next time with you on Family Vision.